Yeah, so we brought our electric air taxi. It's a electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that can carry a pilot and 4 passengers at speeds of 320 kilometers an hour. And we're so excited about the partnership that we've announced with the RTA here in Dubai, where they've brought together the 3 critical resources for bringing this technology to market. The regulatory and policy pieces that are necessary to launch the service, the skyport infrastructure, and an aircraft to deliver a really exciting service.
And just tell us a little bit about your story to here, because it's an extraordinary story. You have the backing of some amazing companies, of Toyota, of Uber. Just tell us how you got to here.
It's been a lifelong dream and a spectacular journey. I founded the company 15 years ago, and we've now raised more than $2 billion and have a team of more than 2,000 people, or almost 2,000 people, and it's really fantastic to now have this partnership here in the region that really shows the world what you can do with this next generation of aircraft.
And you've been going through all of the testing processes. How long before we actually see them flying?
So our target is
in service for the public.
Yeah, our target is to launch the service here in Dubai before the end of next year.
Amazing. Now, Keller, you also are thinking about how we use the skies for a seamless way of mobility, but you're looking at delivery using drones. You started in Rwanda. We had the president here of Rwanda yesterday. Achim from the UNDP was saying he'd come to visit your site outside of Kigali and was amazed at what you've built there. Tell the audience a little bit about this extraordinary company that you've built.
Well, our backgrounds, when we started building Zipline, our backgrounds were in robotics and artificial intelligence and automation. We always really felt like it was going to be possible to build an automated logistics system for Earth. And the thing that really motivated us about that was the opportunity to build the first logistics system that serves all people equally. So we started by delivering blood to 21 different hospitals in Rwanda. Over the last 8 years, Zipline expanded to serving 3,000 hospitals and health facilities globally. We operate 22 global distribution centers, 24/7, 365. We've delivered about 16 million doses of a childhood vaccine, 2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine. We deliver about 75% of the national blood supply of 2 different countries. And then this year, we received regulatory permission to fly at scale in the US. Zipline's the first company in US history to be given permission to fly beyond visual line of sight autonomously throughout the US airspace. And we're working with partners like Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, the VA hospital system, as well as Walmart to enable instant teleportation from any hospital, store, or warehouse directly to customers' homes.
Obviously, we hope to get some nice things and maybe our dinner delivered by you one day. But I was struck by one of the things you said, which was on your website, that the number of people who die because blood doesn't get to them in a traffic accident, for example, because it takes too long, or medicine doesn't arrive to somebody who needs it critically. And you can cut these times down to a matter of minutes. How important was that to you in the building up of the company?
Yeah, because we've been operating globally at scale for the last 8 years, we now have a lot of data on these questions. So University of Pennsylvania published a study last year showing that Zipline has been able to reduce the maternal mortality rate by 51% at the hospitals that we serve. We've been able to reduce missed vaccinations by 42% and reduce zero-dose children by 21 percentage points. And so, a lot of people think of drone delivery as some crazy sci-fi technology that's 10 years away. It isn't. It's been operating at scale for 8 years now, and it's having a major impact on people's healthcare.
Joe Ben, one of the things that I think has been a big topic of conversation here has been this idea of equitable cities, of making places where everyone has access to. I think perhaps when people see your vehicle outside, they think it's going to be a little like Sao Paulo, a world of the super rich moving around above the poor in their helicopters. But you see this as like an SUV, like an Uber of the skies. How important, again, is that to embed that into it, to make it an acceptable solution for cities that they realize it's not just an elite tool?
Yeah, so I think from the moment we founded the company, that was one of the critical values that we had was to make air transportation accessible. And I think one of the incredible, I think both what Zipline's doing and what Joby's doing are showing that so much more is possible with aircraft than we had believed previously. And I think that Zipline and Keller's work is just a spectacular example of what can happen as you drive scale, and the price points that they've been able to achieve for delivering goods and services. And we want to drive that same economies of scale as we work through multiple versions of aircraft to move people around. And, you know, the cars that we were building in the late 1800s were built in small quantities. And it wasn't until you got to the point where they began getting mass produced in the early 1900s that they began to be manufactured in quantities that were sufficient to get the price points down so that everyone was using them every day. So my goal is that we move from a civilization that moves around on the ground to one that moves around in the air. I think that that's going to take time. It's going to take decades, but it is incredibly promising. We just had that last session on resilient cities. And I think this is an incredible example of a technology that can help with resilient cities, both for moving people around and stuff around. And I also think that the kinds of technologies that Zipline's developing for moving things around cities can also scale up in length. And I think there's profound things you can do on the logistics front if you have a unique product that you're making. Let's say you have an agricultural product that you're making in a farm in Africa, and you want to be able to get it to Dubai. Currently, if you're not close to a large airport, it's very difficult for you to get access to delivering your product. But we can again use the kinds of autonomous systems that Zipline has pioneered to move things not just short distances but long distances, and really rethink the global logistics. And so I guess what I'm saying is, I think aviation, we can open the aperture of aviation to what it can bring and how impactful it can be, as we look into the decades of the future.
Yeah, people think of aerospace as being super expensive. It's only super expensive if you only rely on duopolists like Boeing and Airbus to build airplanes. Like, the problem is we don't have, in 1920, there was a huge number of innovative startups building airplanes. Today it's just 2. And so if you want to know why airplanes are super expensive, it's really easy, to understand. So I actually think what's going to happen over the next decade is kind of a big revolution, a renaissance of getting back to building new things in aerospace, agile aerospace.
And even to build on what Keller's saying there, even though we've got this duopoly and the cost of acquiring the aircraft is very expensive and the quantities of aircraft that we're building is relatively small, aviation is still our lowest cost mode of transportation. So it's an order of magnitude less expensive on a per passenger mile basis than driving in a car. It's also 3 orders of magnitude safer. So it's like between 1,000 and 10,000 times safer per passenger kilometer traveled to fly in an aircraft than it is to drive on the ground. And it's at least an order of magnitude faster. You're flying in a commercial aircraft at 500 miles an hour compared to driving on the ground at 20 to 50 miles an hour. So aviation is really remarkable when you think about it in that metric of it's faster, safer, and dramatically less expensive. And it can be even less expensive when you do the kinds of remarkable things that Zipline has been doing in scaling up autonomous aircraft.
And we can transition all of this industry to zero emission, which both Joby and Zipline are doing.
We'll come to that. Quick question: why did you start in Rwanda?
When we were getting started, we knew that regulation was going to be the trickiest thing. No one had ever seen an autonomous aircraft really operating at scale in the way that we needed to operate. And so we wanted to find a country that was agile, forward-looking, technocratic, and Rwanda wound up being the perfect partner. It's a small country, 15 million people, but really focused on investing in the future. They initially asked us to deliver blood to 21 different hospitals. We ended up delivering all medical products to every hospital and health facility in the country. Then we expanded to deliver animal vaccines, animal healthcare products. We're now the major deliverer of artificial insemination products for cattle and pigs in the country. We're now delivering e-commerce products. They're building a national postal service on top of the system. So it's been amazing to start in healthcare, but see the technology grow into broad national infrastructure over time.
And just going forward, quickly on that. Go.
Just to build on that, I think the model that was employed there is like absolutely genius on Keller's part and genius on Rwanda's part, and it is a framework for innovation writ large. So you start with small scale and you iterate, and the iteration that Zipline has done, right? At Joby, we took the full frontal approach on certifying with the FAA. We began that process, that conversation 15 years ago. We've been now working on it in earnest for 9 or 10 years with the FAA. We began our formal certification in 2018. So we are doing the hard, heavy lifting of going straight at the problem of certifying our aircraft in one of the most regulated markets in the world. Whereas what Zipline did was find a sandbox in which they could rapidly iterate, which is much more of akin to the Silicon Valley ethos of being able to try and learn quickly.
Learn by doing.
And just quickly on that, as you iterate and as you go forward, obviously you have built the drones, you've run the drones, you've done the deliveries. As the model evolves, do you step out of some of that chain? Is it a drone system you give to a city and they run it? Or do you see the future of Zipline?
It's quite the opposite. I mean, I think one of the counterintuitive things about Zipline, people always look at us and they say, oh, it's such a cool aircraft. It's such a cool autonomous aircraft. I think the key thing to realize here is that when it comes to autonomous logistics, the vehicle is only 15% of the complexity of the solution. So, what we ended up learning over those 8 years was we also needed to build unmanned traffic management systems. We needed to build computer vision-based pre-flight checks, communication architecture, data logging. We had to figure out how to operate these complex logistics distribution centers. We had to build customer ordering interfaces and platforms. So none of our customers care about drones. This is kind of important. All our customers are buying is teleportation. They want something to go from point A to point B fast enough to save someone's life. And so our business model has evolved over the last 8 years by just taking more and more things internal and keeping all that complexity behind a curtain so that to our customers, this just looks like a logistics system that is 10 times as fast, half the cost, and zero emission.
When we look at regulation and we went to Rwanda with Zipline, you're going to be launching here in Dubai next year. What hope do you think, do you have that Paris will be 2027 or London will be 2026? Do you think those cities are open to the same regulatory changes and lobbying their citizens in a way to accept this technology? Or do you think that you will always, for the next few years, be in innovative cities which have an ability to change regulation and to be adaptive?
So I think the really exciting thing, both on the logistics side and on when it comes to moving people around, is now after working on it for 15 years, we have in the developed world, in these markets which have a lot of existing regulation, we've built up the regulatory framework for, as Keller was talking about, the ability to, he now has the ability to fly his autonomous delivery system anywhere in the continental United States. So that's like a game changer. But it has taken 8 years. The amazing thing is that they've had revenue for those full 8 years because they went and began iterating on it and perfecting it in a non-regulated environment. With Joby, again, we took the full-on regulated approach, but we now also have a framework. We just had one of our last area-specific certification plans approved by the FAA. This means we've done the heavy lifting. We've been working on it for 6 years, and we now have our path to certifying along the existing channels. There are also there's a path that's been set up that where a rule has been issued in the U.S. or it has been a draft of the rule has been issued in the U.S. to apply a process that's much more akin to what's being used for Keller's aircraft for passenger carrying aircrafts that are small. And that's a game changer. That's going to allow a proliferation of really innovative new startups to come and build and try new things of aircraft, both for passenger carrying and for drone logistics at larger scale. And so, again, I think we are in this extraordinarily exciting time where aviation becomes dramatically more relevant to many more dimensions of our daily lives. And so I've never been so excited about the future.
We're talking about future cities. Just tell me, civic leaders, I presume they ask the same questions again and again, and I know what the answers are, but perhaps you could just tell the audience. So it's quiet, it's energy efficient. Just explain a few of the things that you built into it to make sure that when you got to this part of the story, there was probably a better acceptance of it.
Yeah, so our goal was to build an aircraft which was quiet enough to deliver you to where you want to go. We're very, very pleased with what we've accomplished. It's 100 times quieter on an absolute level, and the quality of the sound is dramatically better than a helicopter. That said, I want to continue to work and make it even quieter. So that's on the acoustics piece. On the environmental piece, I wanted to build an aircraft which was lower climate change inducing. That's the metric I use is grams of CO2 per passenger, grams of CO2 equivalent per passenger kilometer. So you're taking the entire life cycle emissions of the flight, not just the energy used during the flight, but also the energy used to make the battery pack, and then depreciating that, the energy used to build the airframe and all the components that go into it. So you look at everything that the environmental impact of everything that goes into manufacturing and operating the aircraft, and then you divide that by a passenger kilometer basis. And the really exciting thing is the aircraft we have today is dramatically better than any other aircraft or any of the large commercial aircraft. And it's also on the order of the environmental impact of driving in an electric car. Now, over time, I want to continue to improve that. We're doing aggressive work on hydrogen electric propulsion, which will improve that even further. So again, this is a work in progress. We are in Gen 1 of many generations, and the opportunities are really, really exciting.
And Keller, just quickly for you then, these are all things that challenges you've faced as well, because I think in many cities people think as drones as that thing that the kid
darken the skies.
Yeah, the kid down the block has that's buzzing over your house and making you go crazy.
Yeah, everybody has this like apocalyptic vision, of like drones darkening the skies. But I mean, the reality is we don't have to guess at this anymore. You can go visit any of the 8 countries where Zipline operates at scale today, and the reality is, the communities we serve love the technology. Most people know someone who is alive because the service exists. And there are going to be 5 billion instant deliveries, just instant deliveries done in the US this year alone. That's like using a 3,000 to 4,000 pound gas combustion vehicle driven by a human to deliver something to your house that weighs 3 to 5 pounds on average. This is insane. It's very expensive, it's very slow, it's bad for the environment, and it's causing tons of traffic in the cities that we live in that frankly don't have great options for building more highways. And so getting all of that traffic that is currently being used to do these small one-off courier deliveries for Instacart or DoorDash or GoPuff, getting all of that traffic off of the roads into a system that is zero emission and 30 times more efficient and 10 times as fast and half the cost is just an extremely obvious thing to do from a first principles perspective.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. There's so many more questions I think that I would have loved to ask both of these amazing entrepreneurs. But thank you for joining this Cities panel, looking at the future of our cities. And thank you to our 2 great panelists, to Keller and to JoeBen. Thank you. Well done. Thank you.